live and streaming?
Yeah, streaming.
We'll kick off. Good evening, everybody. I'm Councillor Ian Edwards, Leader of the Council, and I'm Chairman of the Cabinet. Welcome to people who may be following us online this evening. There being no members of the public present, everybody here is a member of the Council or Council employee. I will not bother with our normal health and safety evacuation procedures. You should be aware of them. However, I will remind you all, please, to have your mobile phones and other devices turned off or to silent, please. And we will kick straight off into the agenda. And item 1, apologies for absence, please, Mark.
Thank you, Chairman. We have apologies from Councillor Eddie Lavery.
Thank you. Colleagues, item 2 is declarations of interest. Are there any additional declarations for this meeting? No, none being indicated. Thank you. Item 3 is to approve the minutes of the last meeting. These in your packet, pages 1 to 10. Are they agreed?
Agreed.
Thank you. Item 4. This is to confirm that there are items of business in both Part 1, the public meeting, and Part 2, the private one. And ladies and gentlemen who may be following this is an unusually light agenda in the public part of the meeting, there being only 2 items on it, one substantive item and a simple introductory report that I will mention in a minute. So we will turn to the single substantive item in Part 1, Item 5, the Budget Outturn 2022-23. Councillor Goddard.
Thank you, Leader. This report deals with the Council's final results for the full financial year to the 31st of March 2023. These results are, of course, subject to external audit. The finalisation of our year-end position has enabled us to further increase our reserves, and hence the overall financial position of the Council continues to be stable and strong. The General Fund revenue account produced an underspend of £127,000 against budget, which reflects a small positive variance of £18,000 against the previously reported month 11 position. However, in reaching this position, we have been able to add a further £1.6 million to our earmark reserves. This means that we will carry £20 million of earmark reserves into the current financial year 2023-24. In addition to this, we also have unallocated general balances amounting to £26.8 million. So in total, we have £46.8 million of reserves which are at our disposal at the start of the current financial year. Continuing exceptional pressures arising from COVID-19 in 22-23 were £14.9 million, with £3.6 million of these costs exceeding budget and being absorbed within earmarked reserves. Inflation has also had a highly material impact upon our costs, and the excess beyond budget has also been allocated within earmarked reserves in the year. In aggregate, further unbudgeted uses of earmarked reserves amounted to a further £4.8 million. It is our objective to retain and build our reserves, notwithstanding the continuing financial challenges and the difficult economic environment. And, of course, these indicate that inflation are likely to be stickier and hence with us for longer periods than originally anticipated by the Bank of England. It is clear that the inflation which we're now suffering as a nation is very largely attributable to the increases in the money supply, in other words referred to as quantitative easing, during the pandemic, and indeed the impact of energy and food supplies triggered by the war in Ukraine. In 23-24, we will see a substantial benefit being derived from our savings programme, and this should minimise the reliance on earmarked reserves going forwards. Our programme of savings for 22-23 will achieve our entire target of £13.3 million. General Fund capital expenditure for the financial year amounted to £47.9 million. Turning to the dedicated schools grant, the results show that we achieved a reduction in the year of the deficit position of £1.7 million, albeit that this is £700,000 worse than budget, largely due to continuing inflationary pressures within the high needs block. The housing revenue account continues to report a close adherence to budget, with a forecast surplus against budget of £169,000, being a £78,000 improvement on the position reported at month 11. Capital expenditure within the housing revenue account for the year was £62.8 million. A key measure of strong financial management and control is a resilient and positive cash flow, and I'm very pleased to report that the authority's aggregate borrowings actually reduced in the year by £33 million. Furthermore, with interest rates in now what appears to be an ever upwards trajectory, it's gratifying to note that our composite interest rate across all our debt is 3.03%, which is even below Bank of England base rate, which currently stands as of today at 5%. I therefore move recommendation 1 within Part A of this report set out on page 2 of Pack B. Part B of the report on page 37 of Pack B sets out a number of recommendations itemised A to E. Of particular note are recommendations A and C, which propose the rephasing of capital expenditure in the General Fund and in the Housing Revenue Account respectively, which have been very largely delayed by resource constraints within the construction industry. All other recommendations set out in this section are self-explanatory, and I therefore move recommendations A to E. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you very much. This is indeed a very good end-of-year Outturn report. When one considers the impact that has occurred on the public sector and private households through the high inflationary period, and also the legacy demands from COVID, for us to have been able to manage our business in a way during this period of high inflation to deliver an underspend on our operational budget is truly commendable. To do so in a way also that enables to add a further 1.6 million to our earmarked reserves rather than draw from them, I would think will stand us apart from just about every other local authority in these circumstances. And it is right to note a healthy overall balance of very close to £50 million. It is also very pleasing that we achieved our full savings target of £13.3 million for the last year. And as has been noted, we are very mindful of the sticky nature of inflation, which will feed through into our service costs and, in all likelihood, potentially pay awards moving forwards from this point. It is therefore right that we are reviewing and revisiting our savings targets for this year to seek even further savings to offset that pressure that we anticipate. So the report, from my perspective, describes a very firm year-of-end outturn, great success under your stewardship, Councillor Goddard, for which I thank you, and also thank the officers for their commitment, and a sound platform in which to build for this year. Colleagues, are the recommendations in those two parts agreed?
Agreed.
Thank you. The only other item in the part 1 is agenda item 6, which is a public preview report. It is a summary of the matters that we will now be considering in part 2. The purpose of this report is to provide more detail and to provide greater transparency of those things that we are obliged to consider in private because of their contractual or business implications. So if that report is noted, thank you. We will now move to part 2, and when the link has been broken, we will move to agenda item 7.